Hello. I want to start by saying, because the things I'm going to say might strike some people differently than I intended to, but I'm going to start this by saying that I am not anti-anybody, not anti-Semitic, anti-anything. I must admit I am pro-black. I am what you people in common jargon would call a black nationalist, a black separatist. But I think everybody should have the right to control their own economics, their own politics, the self-determination of their own people. Some people say that, we should all live in the same house or this or that or that, the same land or whatever. But I feel that all of us sharing the planet Earth in our different countries, that is sharing the same land, the same space. These different countries act as separate houses or mansions for different and various peoples. Not that I want to stop people from living together if they wish. And also I think it could be a thing where people could, come together and live together sometime and then go back to their own separate dwelling or whatever, own separate space. But I believe every race and nation has a right to rule themselves according to their own customs, own cultures, own rules, okay? Now that we got that part over with, I would say that to let you know that I'm not, anti-anybody, because the things I'm going to talk about is going to be really challenging to these type of, to a certain segment of society. But let's say if I was a doctor, if there was black man, white man, Arab, Jew, Indian, whatever. By Indian I mean a Hindu, a Hindu or a Native American. A Hindu first, or Native American, I'll put it like that. Either or. One's the West Indian, one's the East Indian. But anyway, let's say all these different people were wounded or hurt and I was a doctor. I would, of course, use the triad system. I would go to who's hurt the worst, and then who's hurt the worst and had the most chance of living and like that. I wouldn't care what race they were. If it was a black man hurt, and it was somebody of some other race hurt, I would go to the one first that has the most chance of survival. If the black guy didn't have a lot of chance of survival, I wouldn't go to him. If the Jew didn't have a chance of survival, I wouldn't go to him. Whoever had the chance of survival. But now, to say that, I'm going to say this. And this is response to, I follow a lot of the guys that most people call conspiracy guys, Alex Jones, Jordan Maxwell, David Icke, all these different people. I follow, I research the things they say, but actually my research has been the things that they said, I haven't actually done that type of research myself, but I've researched them a lot, and I've researched history a lot, and I've researched religion a lot. And I just want to say, I plan to get my Bible and to read certain chapters to prove my point, but I forgot to get it, so I'm going to have to paraphrase a lot of things that many people know is in the Bible. But when you read in the Bible, everybody talks about the Rothschilds and Jews controlling the world, what have you. And these are mainly Christians, a lot of Christian, right-wing Christians, a lot of people who are right-wing, or they call it right-wing or right-leaning, or even conspiracy theorists, what have you. They talk about the Rothschilds controlling the world. I just want to say that all of them consider themselves Christians. But if you really look at the real Christianity, not the Pauline forgery, and there's a book called James, the Brother of Jesus by Dr. Robert Eisenman. He is a Jew, and perhaps he could be biased to what, perhaps It could be that he's trying to prove that the gospel is not anti-Semitic, but he makes a convincing argument to me that the gospels that we have now are mainly a washover to make Jesus appear more compatible for the Hellenized, Judeo-Hellenized, or the Greco-Hellenized world at that time. The Jesus they have, and he does fit the various Hellenistic and the various gods of the different peoples of that time, going way back to Osiris and Horus and whatnot, Semiramis and Dionysus and Mithra, and these different crucified and raised saviors. They even took Jesus and made his days to fit with the highest pagan holidays of that time. So there was whitewashing there. There was an attempt there to make him more acceptable to the cultures of that time. The real Jesus was probably a character much like what you get with the sectarian sects that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. I don't want to call them Essenes. Some people call them Essenes. The different types of Nazareans, the Nazarites, the Ebionites, the poor. I see that in the scripture where they call themselves the poor constantly, you know. The poor, the meek shall inherit the earth. Those are sectarian, Jewish sectarian type terminologies. I've done a lot of research, and I guess I'm a lay person. A lot of lay research and things into religion. I'm gonna say this, okay? I'm gonna just say this to make a long story short. If you read in the Old Testament, you'll see that Yahweh, the Jews' God, well, I want to pronounce. That's not really. I said it because that's not really how you pronounce his name. I forgot what the initials is for the Tetragrammaton. Okay. So they made a pact with this God, a fealty between them and their God. In the oldest Jewish scripture, there's an understanding that there are many gods, but that this particular God is a Jews' God, the God that they chose and the God that chose them. Now, if you go back to the old Hebrews, Hebrew was a word in the ancient Egyptian Hebrew, I think, that just meant like poor, you know, like poor, you know, how people see poor and low class people. Now, I'm not calling them low class, because to me, the people who rule this world are low class. The poor are not low class. But anyway, that was a term they had for poor people on the bottom of the rung, and they were actually Canaanites. The Hebrews were a Canaanite people. They were poor. Some of them were in indentured servitude in Egypt. Different tribes in Hebrew. So what happened, now this is the official story from official archaeology. So what happened was that these Canaanite city-states or what have you, they always had a plethora of gods. At the top, the emperor, you know, emperor and his royal family, and the priests and whatnot. Those were their gods, and they worshipped them, and the people on the bottom couldn't even come to the temples to worship. They had to get the crumbs off the table. So of course, they had to have a loathing for these gods. Also, I found something years ago. I can't remember where, but it said that the Canaanites were basically Semitic and Indo-European, and the Indo-European Canaanites enslaved the more Semitic ones. The Semitic ones were at the bottom of the rung. Okay. So, when these Canaanite city-states, something happened probably, that's probably what is a Greek island, I forgot the name of it right now, but it's a Greek island that they did a lot of trade with, and it was an earthquake or either a volcanic, whatever, a volcanic explosion, and I think it was Crete, and it could no longer support the seafaring that had made that whole area wealthy. Also extended over to the Palestinian corridor and that whole Middle Eastern area. And when that happened, the powerful Canaanite rulers of these cities, the Indo-European Canaanite rulers of these city-states, no longer had the power to hold the more Semitic ones in fealty or servitude or what have you. So, and even Egypt, the slaves or indentured servants provided by these Canaanite rulers or what have you, or these chieftains, didn't have the power to hold them in servitude anymore, or feed them, or keep their prospective cultures up. So the poorer peoples simply walked off and walked away from servitude in these Canaanite and Egyptian states. And there they met a wandering people, a wandering Arab people, who were like much like Bedouins today in the Bible. They call them Midianites, who worship this God that we now refer to as the Tetragrammaton, or the four letters. And I think he was the only God that they worshiped. They called, the Egyptians had records of these people called the Shasu, they called them, which corresponds to the biblical Esau. So anyway, they adopted the God of these people. And he was a God of relative freedom at that time, what they considered freedom. And so, you know, they made a fealty to this God. I believe that this God, whoever it was one of many. See, gods, we call gods, like a race. Just like human beings, I mean, we have separate sub-races of the human family, but like the human beings as a whole would be considered a race. These gods are a race. And to them, we're like chattel. That's why the Jews call us goyim. We're like chattel. And the Jews, or the Hebrews at that time, these different disparate motley crew of people, as the Bible said, gave fealty to this spirit. And so he became their pet. And if you look at the Old Testament, this God promised them that he would make them over all the peoples, to rule all the peoples of the world. And so in that case, the mythologized Jesus, the real man Jesus, served that purpose. He served that purpose. So, because you look at it, it's amazing that this one Jewish family, the Rothschilds, what have you, can control the whole world the way they do. So that means that this God is working for them. But he also sees them like as a pet. So, and well, I'm going to have to get to part 2 because I'm running out of time for part 1. Thank you. I'm sorry I got interrupted. I don't really know how to use this thing well. I had a guy put a VLC player on here so I can watch different videos, but I shouldn't have done that. I'm about to take the VLC off and just convert the videos with my Windows Movie Maker. Anyway, if you look at the Old Testament, you'll see time and time all through the Old Testament, this God is telling them if you obey the fealty between the different laws and rules between you and I, I'll have the nations bowing to you on one knee. I have the nations bringing you tribute, which is today have to do with resources and gold and things that the different Rothschild family controls in these different lands, like just about all the mines, the diamond and gold mines in Africa. The Rothschilds have a part in it. Through loans given to corporations that set up mining interests in these different countries. All of them. Most of them, the Rothschilds have a hand in it. The Rothschilds have a hand in the World Bank, but most of these mining subsidiaries go to get their funding for different projects in Africa, and they're mostly European. And the Rothschilds and other high Jewish corporations and Anglo corporations are the ones who set these type of things up. The equipment used to mine and such to control by these different Judaic corporations, worldwide corporations. And I just don't think it's right that one group of people will control everyone else's resources, everyone else's land, everyone else's water. I don't think that's right. But that's the promise that God made to them. And these guys are like a race, like we human beings are a race of humans. These guys are a race. They're not visible to us unless they want to be, but they're visible to each other. And this God is one of the creator gods. I think there's one main source, you know, and I think that there are different ways to tap into this one source. But I think that God's like the one in the Bible. This is me thinking this now. I could be wrong. That they're creator gods charged with the creation of man. Either through something in them intuitive or that causes them to come and create us, or either from direct communication with the source. I don't know. But I believe that the source put everything here, that these guys molded it. And I believe that this Yahweh looked up and saw everyone was worshiping Baal and El and all these different Egyptian gods, Amun and Ra and all this. And he revolted, and he got, you know, and he wanted a people to worship him, because that's part of how they get their power. They feed on our energy. They feed, and praise and worship is an energy. That's why all the gods in ancient times demanded a blood sacrifice, because there's blood, energy in blood. There are different salts, there are different enzymes, different things in blood that carry energy. That's a high energy. The life force, which is what the Chinese call qi, and what we call electricity from the sun, is a life force. And I think these beings, like us, we eat life force. We eat other beings' life force. We eat plants, we eat animals. They get their life force from the sun, and we eat it. When we eat that, we're just breaking down energy. But they get it more directly, these gods. That's why there's a prohibition against man drinking blood. That's not our food. They get the life force, which is their energy, the life energy, through the blood. That's why, you know, and this guy sweetened the package for them, because it told them, you don't have to sacrifice humans and babies to me like the Canaanites did to their high god. You know, just give me the blood animals. Although most societies mostly sacrifice animals, a lot of them, mostly all of them, also sacrifice human beings, because that's really what these guys want. But these guys can live off you without actually killing you, because you're going to die anyway one day. That's why in the Old Testament that God said, you know, when you're dead, I have nothing to do with you. That, you know, that's why it was a prohibition against the priest touching a dead corpse. Because once a thing is dead, he couldn't feed off of it. But don't get me wrong, you gotta give some praise to Yahweh, because Yahweh or whatever, that's not the real pronunciation of that name. People just think it is, but you have to give him some kind of praise, because it is a creator God. It is a creator God. Be it a spaceman or whatever you want to call it. It's a higher being of life than we are. It's just the way it is. Just like you feast on fish, you take fish, you put it in a fish bowl. You have your favorite pet dog against other dogs. That's just the way it is. Might makes right. The strongest have the right to rule in the universe, but the strongest can't misrule too much. So when you worship Jesus, the made-up Jesus, the Pauline Jesus, And all these nations, like, these evangelists, they want to prop up Israel, what have you. They're propping up the Rothschilds. But anyway, you look at the whole world, and in some way or fashion, the whole world, like in the Bible, it said, I will make, many sons, whatever, or make many generations. The whole world is Jewish. Even the great Chinese, who is another ancient culture, and they have brought great spiritual traditions, like Taoism and such. That's a tradition that gets you in contact with the source of life and energy on earth. I've done the microcosmic meditations, and there is energy that goes through you. As a matter of fact, as a result, I can see auras around people now, somewhat, and the little thin, just basic energy strand around people. And sometimes when they get emotional, I see, the yellow or golden color. I got the number right 12 times in a row, the lotto, 13, and I had a proof. I had a lady on YouTube. I had a lady, I video recorded her telling that. And I'm gonna put it on YouTube. So I know I contacted something. I contacted a source, or I don't know. I contacted a source. So I look at these traditions as higher on scale. I look at the Chinese. I say the Chinese, also probably being the oldest culture on earth, have the best spiritual system, I think, okay, between the Chinese and India, who they got a lot of their spirituality from and then fine-tuned it. But I'm not going to go into that. But also the Jews are one of the oldest cultures on earth. The oldest culture, or second oldest culture on earth, first or second. And that's another reason why they can outshine everyone else, because they've had a longer culture of dealing with these ancient cultures, Samaria, Kemet, Egypt, which is Egypt. So of course, also this God of theirs made him some promises, and he's keeping his promise. Even though they're, like I said, I believe like we're all just chattel. We're chattel, and they're like pets to him. But that's how it is, a symbiosis. They give him energy through praise, through other things. Even the Christians, but like I was saying, every nation on earth is Judaic. Just let's look at the Chinese. Even they have adopted communism, will come from Karl Marx and Engels. That's, even though it has no God, it's another type, Judaic type religion to me. Because at the end of it, it has the utopia. Utopianism. It's got the earmarks of a Jewish religion. Islam came probably from the Essene type Jews, or the ultra Jews who escaped Jerusalem with the destruction of the Romans, and they went to the different deserts in Arabia. Dr. Eisenman has said about, I mentioned Job being in northern Arabia, and I had told people that that's the only part in the Bible, before I had even heard that from Dr. Eisenman. I had told people that that's the only place in the Bible where they mention jinn, and it's in there, but it's G-I-N. They mention jinn. And their explanation, a Christian or Jewish or Apocrypha, I forgot the name of the book, it explains that Satan is mad and hates man but loves God. And that's why he tries to tempt and bring man low. Not the Christian ideology that Satan was cast from heaven. It's more, the Islamic explanation is more in character with ancient Jewish Apocrypha. So you got Islam, you got communism, even capitalism. The Rothschilds began loaning and lending money out, promissory notes for these different European powers for their gold, and then began to loan out more monies that exceeded the amount of gold that they actually had in their banks. and multiplied the money. That way multiplying these promissory notes that really was based on nothing. And that's the basis of capitalism. So even that, everywhere in the world just about is under Judaism, some kind of direct Judaic, some kind of Judaic system, just about. Either Judaic system or Greek system, but so-called democracy, which is or a representative Republican type of government. But as you see, I think that even people who worship Jesus in Christianity is Judaism. Jesus never meant to start a religion. He was a Jew. He was trying to go back to what he considered the real Jewish ways. But these dumbass Christians, they believe anything. They don't even research their religion. They don't know nothing about it. They don't even research it, but yet they have all this faith. James was really the one, if you want to be a Christian, you should be reading. And I read that, and I see a lot of Buddhism, what I call Buddhism in it, where he talks about, people's desires, what causes them to sin and whatnot. So that's definitely Essenian, because some points of Essene doctrine seems like that. So all I'm saying is that the God of Israel told them that they will rule the world. And they do. The Jews rule the world. They control everything. They control the media. They control finances. They control the medical arena. But that's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's just the way it is. There can be no other way right now. They are one of the oldest cultures, continuous cultures on earth. So they bring knowledge from cultures before them, great cultures before them, that we probably don't even know about. So that's just the way it is. So, and if you try to go up and destroy them, you'll wind up like the madman Hitler. He was crazy, and he should have been destroyed, But anyway, it's just the way it is, That God rules the world. And if you want, but I just stay away from the whole world system. I don't care about it. But I do, like I said, I've tapped into a spiritual tradition that I believe goes to the source of all, goes past all these creator gods, goes to the source. But you got to get these creator gods that do, because they did mold you with their hands, or they're gods or from different planets. I mean, Hinduism says the gods live on different planets. So they're just a higher race of being than we are. To us as gods, yes. Now that's the end of that. I'll see you.